News now begins with updates on minimum wage, as we understand that President Bola Tinubu may sign the minimum wage bill into law next week following its recent passage by the National Assembly. Sources within the Assembly say the bill has finalized on Wednesday and transmitted to the President on Thursday after an expeditious passage by both chambers during Tuesday's plenary session. Senior Special Assistant on National Assembly Matters, Abdullahi confirmed the development, noting the President's anticipated swift assent to the bill. The National Assembly swiftly passed the National Minimum Wage Act 2019 Amendment Bill after President Tinubu and Labour leaders agreed on 70,000 naira as the new wage for Nigerian workers during a meeting at the Aso Presidential Villa in Abuja. President Bola Tinubu has quelled fears of manipulation by any interest group in the ongoing economic reforms, asserting that his campaign was self-financed and free from any obligations to individuals or institutions. Receiving a delegation of Islamic leaders at the State House on Thursday, the president emphasized that his electoral victory was the result of divine intervention, meticulous planning, and diligent efforts to garner support for Nigerians. Now, Thursday's meeting was part of a last-minute effort by the Tinubu administration to address severe criticism over its policies and avert a planned protest. Since the removal of the fuel subsidy and the floating of the naira, the cost of living has soared, leading to widespread discontent among citizens. President Tinubu met with governors from the All Progressives Congress under the aegis of the Progressives Governors Forum at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The meeting, which began at minutes past 1 p.m., follows growing calls for nationwide protests against economic hardship. The protests, organized under the hashtag #EndBadGovernance, have gained significant traction on social media, even as the organizers remain largely anonymous, with no group officially claiming responsibility. Moving away from that, traditional rulers in the country have called on citizens to shun plans for the upcoming nationwide protest, saying there is a need for patience as the federal government resolves issues affecting youths in the country. Now, this was after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the State House in Abuja, Nigeria's administrative capital. Amadin Uyi reports.
The meeting was the first of its kind, with the President, members of the Federal Executive Council, and traditional rulers.
The very first time, the traditional rulers were properly engaged in terms of the plans of government and governance, their achievements so far, and where they're having challenges.
The Oni of Ife, while speaking to newsmen after the meeting, commended the President and his cabinet members for recognizing the role of traditional rulers.
Stewardship from the Federal Executive Council directly to the traditional rulers. It has never happened in our nation before, never. This is the first time we're all experiencing it. We have traditional rulers that have been on the throne for 40, 50 years. Today is the very first time we will be addressed properly by the Federal Executive Council.
The rulers urged those planning to embark on a nationwide protest not to take the laws into their hands.
It is very difficult to build, but it is the easiest to destroy. We are all stakeholders of this country. We should be stronger as a nation together than stronger individually. The President has said it and he will continue to say it. Any leader that you don't like, wait and vote him out. Wait and vote him out.
This protest, I know that it's catching you very, very high in your neck. But if you give us the chance, let us not destroy our own country. I ask you, think of Libya. Libya was a beautiful country. What has happened to Libya? We don't want it to happen here.
The message we are taking back to our people is to be calm, to exercise patience, and also to listen to the words of wisdom coming from the traditional rulers, from the governors, because we have spoken to the president and he has given us the blueprint of what he has been doing over time.
The Emir of Zauzau revealed that the rulers also tasked the presidents to address insecurity.
We have made it very clear to him our main problem in this country, especially in the north here, is security issue. If the security situation is addressed, certainly people will go back to their farms. So the issue of hunger will drastically, go down and it will disappear.
The traditional rulers are also calling on youths in the country to have patience with the current government. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has warned protesters to shelve any plans of taking to the streets within the federal capital under the guise of a nationwide protest. This was during an emergency security meeting with heads of security agencies and area council chairmen, where he urged residents to embrace changes and development ongoing within the capital, saying President Bola Tinubu is doing so much to bring infrastructural development to citizens.
For us as FCT, we have seen the changes in FCT. We have seen that government is working. Mr. President has given FCT so much support that a lot of us can attest to the fact that there are a lot of changes going on in the FCT. And therefore, we will not allow anybody to set us back. We are looking forward to make sure that we take FCT to where it's supposed to be, as one of the major cities, not only in Africa, but also in the world. And so we will not allow anybody to disrupt peace. For those who want to protest on the 1st or thereabout, FCT is not available for such a protest.
Joining us on the news is Mohammed Abdullahi, a public affairs analyst. Hello, Mohammed. Thank you for joining us at this time.
Good morning, Nigerians. Always my pleasure.
Good morning. So, Mohammed, do you by any chance have an update on the outcome of the meetings at the villa today, supposedly to stop the proposed End Bad Governance protests?
Yes, it's all over the news. I think what the government, the federal government, have been trying to do with the various meetings, remember there was a meeting between the president with traditional rulers. In my opinion, what the government have been trying to do is to persuade the planned protesters, to shelve their idea. Which is commendable anyway. But again, I think we must also understand, or everyone, Nigerians should understand that it is also the fundamental right of Nigerians to assemble, to associate. This right is enshrined in our constitution. But what is most fundamental is that this association should be very peaceful. Because you had the Dean of Agbo mentioned in your news bulletin that peace is very paramount. It is very important that we maintain peace at all sides. Yes, people might want to protest, and they have right to do so, like I mentioned. But it's also the duty of government to ensure that these processions, whether it will happen or not, there should be peace and orderliness. And how do they do this? If the government, from what they are doing at the moment in terms of ensuring that the protests do not hold, is fine. But there must also be plan B by the government to say, what if this protest holds? I think that's another area that government should also be looking at, because yes, it's not also right, for instance, from the statement of the FCT minister, former Governor Wike, mentioning that Abuja is not available for protest. I don't think those statement is kind of right. Yes, we persuade these people not to, people want to protest, not to protest, but if eventually they do, such statement is like saying authoritatively that if they do, they may be attacked or they may be prevented and so on and so forth.
All right,
What I
but
think government
if
should
eventually, since we're speaking, we're talking about eventuality, if eventually they still decide to go on the protest, do you think that, because we've seen meetings with traditional rulers that you've actually spoken about as well, do you think that the meetings with them would be effective in stopping the protest in any way?
It's difficult. From what I'm seeing through social media, it's very challenging. I've had people calling out to the traditional rulers that, in fact, they should stay out of this, that the people have made up their mind to go into the streets to protest. That's what I'm saying. In terms of eventuality, government should also be preparing for eventualities. And how do they do this? Is to make sure that these protests and processions are orderly, are peaceful. And in doing so, we have security apparatuses who should guide these protests to become to become peaceful. Because definitely, I understand the fear of government. For instance, we have less than perhaps 1.5 million security apparatuses, personnel all over the country, whether the Nigerian police, army, navy, whatsoever. I'm very sure it's less than 1.5 million or maximum 2 million. Compared to the total population of 200 million people, is very much underwhelming. So this is the fear of government. And then, if you have like at least even 5-10 million Nigerians on the street, it's quite challenging. But again, government should do its utmost best to make sure that people do not infiltrate, bad elements do not infiltrate this so-called protest and turn it to become violent.
Okay, now, in addition to that, so many, stakeholders, so many leaders have actually come out, to plead on behalf of the government for these protesters to actually, halt or shelve the protest, saying that President Tinubu is already doing a lot, to help with the situation, especially when it comes to bad governance and the cost of living crisis in Nigeria. So, but in your opinion, do you believe that the president's administration or the administration is taking the necessary steps to address the underlying issues that the protesters are going out for in the first place?
The major reason for the protest, in my own view, my own opinion, is the fact that some of the basics of human existence are lacking. For instance, number one, food is very challenging. We all know in this country what it means to get food. Even though government is trying, on the other hand, the issue of the passage of the minimum wage bill, even local government autonomy is a big one. And then, recently the president also is putting into place the Southeast Development Commission, Northwest Development Commission. These are all geared towards bringing governance into perhaps the region easily. The local government, bringing governance to the people, closest to the people easily. But this will take time to materialize. You understand? So like I said, some of the easiest things like food is still very much challenging, and so on and so forth. Transportation, movement from one place to another, and insecurity. Most importantly, you had the Emir of Zazzau mentioning that if insecurity is tackled, perhaps in the north, it will reduce to the barest minimum the cost of living. So these things that government is putting into place, they are fantastic, but they might take time to materialize. So what I think government should do immediately is to address the issue of insecurity and the issue of food security for Nigerians. If government is able to do this, I'm sure 4 days or 5 days is not enough anyway to do this. But if they are able to do this in the short term, the possible short term, it will go a long way in not perhaps probably preventing this planned protest, but perhaps future reoccurrence.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mohammed, for speaking to us on this.
Thank you very
much. With that, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, the news continues. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. The Northeast Development Commission has distributed hundreds of prosthetic limbs, crutches, and wheelchairs in an effort to improve the lives of people with disabilities in the region. Managing Director of NEDC, Mohammed Al-Ali, who flagged off the exercise in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, said the initiative was part of efforts to promote inclusivity and empowerment for people living with disabilities. News Central's Umari Kirawa completes the report.
It is a day to smile for these persons living with disabilities who previously faced challenges in mobility in Borno State of Nigeria's northeast. The provision of these mobility aids, according to them, is a long-awaited dream.
Sai dai abokanan arziki ne za su tallafa maka saboda kullum kana zaune guri daya to amma yanzu tunda Allah ya sa ka samu an samu kafan nan to akwai hanya da mutum zai iya zuwa ya dan nemi taro da kobo abu da zai dan cire gidansa da shi.
Na ga akwai bambancin kafar roba da rashin kafar roba. Allah ya saka da alheri. Na gode a wannan kungiya da ta taimake ni da kafar roba.
Na yi farin ciki sosai. Zan ringa karatu na da shi. Ni kuma na zama kamar kowa, kamar mai kafa biyu.
Na ji daɗi, kafa nan an yanka ina sha wahala. Allah ya taimake ni yau kuma kina ban kafan roba. Ga na tafiya da kamar wayansu amma bai kai mai kafa biyu ba, alhamdulillah ni man tafiya da kafa na. Zan je cikin jama'a yanzu na shiga sau ma Allah ya da zan sa sau sai zan saya. Da muna sai kafa da wani ya gani kafa na dama zai baya. Yanzu ba wanda zai kiyama ni.
The insurgency, which has impacted the northeast, led to a significant increase in the number of people living with disabilities.
You can see some of them have been suffering using some local crutches and this and that. We now try to provide modern ones that will make them work as normal persons so that they can do whatever they want to do in life. So this is why we have partnered with the Commission of the Commission so that we can be able to provide what they need. As you heard them saying, we should consult them to tell us what they want. And this is one of the things they wanted, and we provided them today.
Addressing the socio-economic challenges faced by this vulnerable group is said to be among other things that prompted the need to support them.
We have been building houses, schools, clinics, and so on and so forth. And what we can do to improve the life of people in North, we can do it. Now that it's a rainy season, we're looking at agriculture so that people can be able to go back to farm. We're looking at security and so on and so forth.
The persons with special needs still look up to the Northeast Development Commission, among other agencies, and the privileged for more support and economic self-sufficiency in the region. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Thank you, Umaru, for that report. Now, the federal government has not yet commenced direct payment of monthly allocations to Nigeria's 774 local government areas. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, explained that the Supreme Court's proceedings had not yet been communicated to the Attorney General of the Federation for proper study and implementation. Recall that on July 11, 2024, a 7-man panel of the Supreme Court granted financial autonomy to local governments, a decision that was opposed by some state governors. The Apex Court emphasized the division of government power into 3 tiers, that's federal, state, and local governments. Now, joining us to discuss this is legal practitioner Elvis Asia. Hello, Elvis. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on the program.
So it's been 2 weeks exactly, since that ruling on July 11th. Why do you think the Supreme Court's proceedings had not yet been communicated to the Attorney General of the Federation? And could there be any cause for the delay?
It's quite surprising to hear that the judgment has not been communicated to the Attorney General. I was not a party in the matter, but I've seen the judgment. I've seen the satisfactory copy of the judgment, and it's even online now. The Attorney General who brought the case ordinarily should already have the copy. So it's quite strange to hear that the judgment has not been communicated. Perhaps, otherwise I would understand the fact that it's going to take a while for the judgment to be implemented, but to say that the judgment has not been received is quite strange and worrisome.
Okay, since it's strange to you, could you still be able to speak to us on the validity of the practical delays, that the minister actually mentioned? Is this a cautious approach justified?
Well, it's understandable that there will be some practical issues involved in complying with the judgment. That is quite understandable. Judgment was delivered about 2 weeks ago, so it's going to take a while for all the necessary procedures to be put in place for direct transfer of funds to the local government. The system currently is that you have what they call the FAC, and they sit every month to decide on these allocations from the federation accounts on a monthly basis. There is already a template for doing that before the judgment, so it's expected that a new template will be done. I foresee a situation where compliance will probably commence from say August, and I don't think they are going to be able to comply with the judgment for July, because there are practical issues, obviously that would postpone the enforcement of the judgment to say August, but it is not gladdening to hear that the judgment has not been communicated to the Attorney General, because the Attorney General brought the case. Other people have gotten a certified copy of the judgment. I have it. It's all over the place online. So it is that is what I'm worried about. But I will understand that there will be some technical issues involved in the enforcement that may take a while.
All right. Now, speaking of postponing the enforcement of the judgment, now, although while the AGF also awaits true copy of the Supreme Court ruling, are there any potential consequences, especially if direct payments to the local government and their constituents is further delayed?
Well, as it stands now, the law in the country is that you must allocate directly to government. So, the Federation has no authority currently to do it any other way. So they have no choice but to speed up the process of complying with the judgment. The judgment has an automatic, it's automatic in terms of enforcement. It's not something you can wait forever to do, even though I appreciate some practical realities. But as it stands today, there's no legal basis in the country for you to allocate funds to local government in a manner other than what the Supreme Court ordered in the judgment. Okay. So, but like I said, we can give them a few weeks more to wrap up the process of putting up the structure for compliance and enforcement. But quite frankly, there's no other legal basis for allocation of funds to the government other than what the Supreme Court has ordered.
All right, thank you for speaking to us on this, Elvis. We appreciate you for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Away from that, the people of Obohia in Ndoki Ukwa-Izi Autonomous Community in Abia State, southeast Nigeria, say they will not accept any traditional ruler who is not a product of the established system of choosing one. They claim that the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs are making arrangements to scuttle the constitution. News Central's Chinwe Ugele has details.
We are the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs bearing placards with different inscriptions and chanting their grievances. Additional stool is by rotation between the two clans that make up Obohia Autonomous Community in Ndoki Ukwa East local government area of Abia State. They accuse some of their kinsmen of instigating the commissioner, permanent secretary, and the director of the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs to favor a candidate from the same clan where the immediate past traditional ruler came from.
We just want to tell them for Kurota people, the people of Umukurota, to leave, allow the Umukurota people, the kindred, to produce the eligible Eze of their choice.
We cannot exchange our traditional stool for a political party. That is not what we are here to do.
Anything concerning tradition should not be tampered. We are seeking for justice and peace, more especially in our community.
In solidarity to the clan expected to produce the next king following their father's demise, children of the late traditional ruler joined in the protest.
But they should know that they come from a clan. They should know that their turn has been used by my late dad. This is the turn of Umukoraja people.
We have tried and explored every peaceful avenue, but all to no avail. The commissioner of this commission is biased. The permanent secretary has obviously let us know that she is biased.
In response to the allegations, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, denied all the protesters said, accusing them of trying to interfere with the process.
The ministry does not give or select who to rule a particular community. Rather, the ministry helps them use their constitution properly to select an Eze. The Honorable Commissioner is with the Mbichirezis. There are people they call Mbichirezis. I am not from there. These Mbichirezis are the king-making bodies who should determine the processes to be taken in selecting a new Eze.
The Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs in Abia State has come under criticisms lately by various communities where the traditional rulers recognized by the government are believed not to have emerged following their adopted system. In Omaha for News Central, Chinwe Ugeli.
Now still in the west of the continent, Niger's military leader, General Abdurrahman Tiani, has declared that the West African country is on an inexorable march towards sovereignty. Now, Tiani made this announcement during a speech commemorating the first anniversary of the coup d'etat that brought him to power.
Aucun État, aucune organisation interétatique ne nous dictera la conduite à tenir ni son agenda en matière de partenariat stratégique ou diplomatique. Et ceux qui fantasment sur la remise en selle imminente des régimes déchus à leur solde vont déchanter. Ils devront se rendre à l'évidence avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. Notre marche vers la souveraineté pleine et entière et inexorable.
Now let's head to the east of the continent, where the police in Uganda have continued their crackdown on protesters, arresting at least 73 young people, including 3 on Wednesday, who were attempting to hold a press conference. Now, the recent protests were partially inspired by youth-led demonstrations in neighboring Kenya, which saw participation from young Ugandans who had mobilized online. The protesters are demanding the resignation of Speaker of Parliament Anita Among, who was named in a corruption expose published on social media in February. They are also calling for the reduction of the high salaries of Ugandan parliamentarians who are living the highest paid, or who are among the highest paid in the country, or in the world, I beg your pardon. Joining us on the news is Kato Tumusime, a human rights lawyer and advocate in Kampala, Uganda. Hello, Kato. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Thank you so much for hosting me once again, and I am glad to be part of this conversation today.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, as one of the lawyers representing the arrested protesters, can you describe the scale and nature of the charges that they are facing?
So far, to begin with, we have about 90 people, young people and women that have been arrested since the protest started on the 23rd of July 2024. The unfortunate bit is that the number that is disclosed by the Uganda police and other security agencies only is limited to 70 people being arrested and charged in courts of law. The charges against all these people that are enjoying their freedoms and rights under the Constitution and the right to demonstrate peacefully is a charge of common nuisance and public nuisance. Those are the charges that are being preferred against all these people that are demonstrating and showing their rights in the fight against corruption in this country, Uganda. Basically, in all the courts I have attended, the courts held and convened at night, all the charges preferred against these people, and that they have denied are charges of common nuisance.
Now, we also know that, there were warnings before the protest from the authorities, and I'm talking about the president himself and the police as well. Now, can you tell us, how have the authorities justified the arrests made?
Of course, the people received the threats from the police, including the president, and threatening them not to enjoy their fundamental rights as provided for under the constitution. But people are saying enough is enough. And the message the people and the young people are saying out to the government and the police is that the history shows it clear, but that by the time the NRA or the NRM regime, including the President Museveni, started the war Bush, they were in the youthful years of their time. And this is our youthful years as well. The message they are saying is that the 1986 revolution as it started, it is now our time to also enjoy our 1986. The threats and the arrests are trying to send a message to the rest of the people not to join their colleagues in the fight against corruption. And the president has clearly said on a number of times that he's the biggest champion of starting a fight against corruption, and we are here to support him. To recall about, I think in 2018, President Museveni and all these other people that are in government, most of them that have been incriminated in the corruption charges, started a march. It was a peaceful march from the city square to Kororo airstrip here in Kampala, sending a message and the was to fight against corruption.
Okay, speaking of marches and, human rights abuse, are there concerns in any way about the erosion of the civil liberties and human rights in Uganda? And how do citizens actually perceive the ability to exercise these rights? Please, can you speak to us in 30 minutes just before we wrap up? 30
Thank you
seconds,
so much.
I beg your pardon.
All the rights that are given and guaranteed by the Constitution of Uganda have been violated during this kind of protest and during the arrest. If you see the nature of arrest and how the activists and the demonstrators are being handled, it is unconstitutional and unfair. It is just inhuman and mistreatment from the police and the army, including that even when these people are arrested and we know their whereabouts, the lawyers ourselves are not allowed to access and talk to these accused people as our clients, so that we can be able to see how best we can help in fighting for their rights, even in courts of law. Secondly, that the people involved in trying to come, what they say they are trying to come and suppress the demonstrations, is that we are facing a challenge that most military men from the army, the UPDF here in Uganda, are masquerading as the policemen. And those are the best and the most people conducting themselves and violating these rights.
All right, Kato. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but we'd actually have to wrap up here. Time is not on our side, but thank you so much for speaking to us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break and be back in a bit. Stay with us. Now we head to southern Ethiopia's Kencho-Sachagodzi district, where the search for bodies and survivors of a devastating landslide continues. The disaster, which has claimed at least 257 lives, according to the United Nations, has left many grieving. Solomon Soma, who lost 13 relatives, including his sister, in the tragedy, said identifying the bodies had been incredibly difficult.
ሰባት ያጎተ ልጆች እንደገና የወንድም ልጆችን እነዚህ ሁሉ ጠቅላላ 13 ነፍስ ነው ያጣነው እና 12ቱ አስከሬናቸው ተገኝተዋል። አንድ እህቴ የእናቴ አባቴ ልጅ እህቴ እስካሁን አስከሬኗ
Let's head to North Africa. Algeria's President Abdullahi Tebboune, who has been accused of leading a crackdown on dissent since the mass protest in 2019, is set to face two challengers in the upcoming September 7th election. The challengers are Abdullahi Hassani from the moderate Islamist Party, the Movement of Society for Peace, and Yusuf Al-Chiche from the center-left Socialist Forces Front. The other 13 hopefuls had their candidacies rejected after failing to gather the required number of supporting signatures. Tebboune, who won the presidency in 2019 with 58% of the vote following months of pro-democracy protests, announced in March that the presidential election will be held on September 7th.
السيد عبدالله حساني وسي أوشيش والسيد تبون عبد المجيد. هذم الثلاثة الذين قبلت
Now, in other news from around the world, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reaffirmed his commitment to securing the release of all captives. He was speaking during a meeting in Washington with the families of hostages. Kamala Harris, a presidential hopeful, signaled a significant shift in U.S. Gaza policy. She urged Netanyahu to finalize a peace deal and promised not to remain silent on the suffering in the Palestinian enclave. Harris also called for the establishment of a Palestinian state and pressed both Netanyahu and Hamas to agree to a ceasefire and a hostage release deal to end the conflict sparked by Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel.
These are families of hostages praying, yearning to see their loved ones brought home. Today we were just informed as we were speaking. There was a report of 5 hostages that unfortunately are not alive, but it confirms what we knew. And our soldiers found them and brought them back. But we're committed to bringing everyone back. We're engaged in very intensive efforts. And I hope they succeed. And I want to thank
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. We made that commitment to the families. The American people are with you. They're praying for you. They empathize with what you're going through. They sympathize with you, and we want to be a partner with Israel, as you said.
Coastal provinces in eastern and southern China have heightened their typhoon emergency responses as Typhoon Gemi swipes the region. Authorities also warn that the storm will bring torrential rains, posing a significant flooding risk. On Friday, authorities evacuated nearly 300,000 people and suspended public transport across eastern China as Typhoon Gemi unleashed heavy rains. The rains have already claimed 5 lives in nearby Taiwan. Gemi, the strongest typhoon to hit Taiwan in 8 years, made landfall on Thursday, flooding parts of the island's second largest city. The typhoon also exacerbated seasonal rains in the Philippines, triggering floods and landslides that killed 30 people on its path to Taiwan. In the world of sports, Super Eagles winger Samuel Chukwueze has been included in AC Milan's 29-player squad for their pre-season tour of the United States. Milan will face Premier League champions Manchester City, La Liga and Champions League winners Real Madrid and Spanish giants Barcelona during the tour. Key players like Theo Hernandez, Mike Maignan and Tijani Regenders are expected to at Milanello on the 3rd of August, while others will join later in the month. Nigeria Super Eagles defender Chidozie Awaziem has signed with FC Cincinnati in Major League Soccer. The club announced the move from Boavista FC of Portugal. Awaziem has secured a one-year contract with FC Cincinnati, which includes options for extensions through 2026 and 2027. He will join the team pending receipt of his P1 visa. Last season, Awaziem made 27 appearances in Boavista in the Portuguese Primeira League. The Court of Arbitration for Sports dismissed Russia's appeal regarding the reallocation of the 2022 Olympic team figure skating medals. The International Skating Union had demoted Russia from gold to bronze after Kamila Valieva received a 4-year doping ban. Valieva was part of the Russian team in Beijing. The appeal sought to overturn the decision that promoted the U.S. to gold and Japan to silver. CAS upheld the disqualification of Valieva's result, stating that the decision was correct. The Russian Olympic Committee expressed strong disappointment and is considering further action. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We understand that President Bola Tinubu may sign new minimum wage bill next week. We also heard that federal government has delayed direct payment of monthly allocations to local governments. We told you that Algerian president would face 2 challenges in September's presidential election. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dashen, Usman.